We're talking about the end times. This is Systematic Theology class, number 179. And we're talking about eschatology, the end times, the last end time studies. We're in Revelation, the 17th chapter and verse number 9. And we're talking about some symbolic language here. Some symbolic language. It talked about 10 horns. It talked about 7 mountains. Horns means power. It means rulers. The 7 mountains means 7 governments. The woman is a false religious system. There are 10 horns or 10 kings, 10 rulers involved in this end time nation. I've come to the conclusion that it's talking about Islam. Islam is so closely tied to opposites of the Bible. The Muslims always say that the Bible has been corrupted. The Bible has been corrupted. It's called the Quran. The Quran is a confusing goulash of biblical knowledge with legend, heresy, many illogical things. It took the Bible and just scrambled it all up, the names and everything in the Bible, and just got it all messed up. Muhammad's religion is a religion of terror and hate and murder. That's all it's ever been. It's never been anything else. On this shelf over there from one side to the other, 4 feet wide, I have Islamic writings, much of it by them. If you really study Islam's history by Ibn Ishaq, the life of Muhammad, the apostle of God, or the prophet of God, you'll look at that man and you'll say, man, this man was something else. He was vicious and evil and bloodthirsty and a rapist and a child molester and all of these things all rolled into one. Yet there's all kinds of excuses they make for what he did. We're talking about these end time governments now. I think Catholicism will be swallowed up with Islam. The message I did just before this was the evolution of Christendom. (17) verse 9, and here is the mind, the one having wisdom. The word wisdom there is the same word used in James 1 and 5. It's Sophion. Marilyn, you really like that Greek word, Sophia. Sophia Loren. Sophia is a very beautiful name. Sophia, having wisdom. And the 7 heads are 7 mountains, they are. 7 mountains are 7 governments. And each one of these governments is a state and church religion. It is a political, religious system. Where the woman, she sets. Now the woman is basically the harlot. The harlot of Revelation. This woman is a false religious system. And she sets over all, this false religious system sets over all of these governments in the end times. And then it says there are 7 kings. The woman is the head of the false religious system. She rules over 7 kings. At one time, the Catholic Church ruled over so many kings, the sun never set on the Roman Catholic Empire. The Islamic government that took over the Roman Catholic nations in the middle, from Asia Minor all the way back, and even into Europe and Spain, they ruled for 300 years. Now they have spread all over the world. Their culture, Sharia law, they will not submit themselves to laws of a nation, constitution of nations. They want to live under Sharia law. At one time, one of the presidents of the United States said, if people will not come in and assimilate into our country, then they don't belong here. We have a lot of trouble with that today in America from Mexico and Islamic nations. They will not assimilate. Verse number 10 now. And 5 of them had fallen. They fell. And one he is, and the other not yet to come. And whenever he may, for a little while, it is bindingly necessary for him to remain. Bindingly necessary for him to remain for a little while. Verse number 11. And the swift running beast, which he kept on being and not is, even the 8th he is, and out of the 7 he is, unto destruction he goes. Remember, the 7th empire was not the Roman, the Holy Roman Empire. That was Islam. And Islam basically died in October of 1923, I believe it was. But this nation will rise again, because the king that was over what we call the caliphate, the king that was over, the ruler over the caliphate, will rise again. Now Islam is looking for the Mahdi to come. The Mahdi will be a direct descendant of his daughter, and he will have the spirit of Muhammad in him according to them. And he will have the mind and the very spirit of Muhammad. He will be an identical to him. They will come, he will be 40 years old when he begins to rule. He will come out of Syria, they say, according to Islamic eschatology. A beast will help him and will mark all the true believers of Islam. And then the false Antichrist, Isa, will stand up, and they will begin to take on, first of all, they're going to kill all the swine in the world, according to them. Then they will kill all the Jews in the world. But in the meanwhile, they're going to make a hudna, a temporary peace treaty. Islam eschatology says they were going to move the Kaaba stone from Mecca to Jerusalem, and that they will build a temple in Jerusalem. The Bible says that an Antichrist will rise and he'll come on a peaceful platform, a platform of peace, and will bring peace. The Islamic people always say, the Muslims always say that the Muslim idea is peace. Peace. They bring peace to the world. The Muslim means peace. But the word Muslim does not mean peace. It means surrender. Surrender. Now, they will make contracts with things, and you sign the contract, and the idea is that we'll work together with you as a religion, but you have to sign down that your ideas about Jesus are wrong. That your ideas about the Bible are wrong. That when Christendom, when the Catholic Church went into the Middle East and took back the holy site, so to speak, that was wrong. That was a terrible terrorist act. But what has Islam done all the time ever since Muhammad, born 570 A.D., by 632 he declared war on the world and all other religions. All they've done since then is conquer, murder, captivate, rape, and pillage, and steal. Islam was supported by theft. That was their occupation, was theft, murder, and crusades. Now, this will happen again. It said 5 have fallen, 1 stood up, the 7th, and he fell down, and the 8th shall rise. And the swift-running beast, and not he is, even he is the 8th, and he's out of the 7th. The 7th empire shall rise again. The 7th empire was the caliphate, the Muslim caliphate. And then it says he's going to go in destruction. The first people to go into hell is the Antichrist. The lake of fire is the Antichrist, the beast and the false prophet. The Antichrist, the beast, and the false prophet in the book of Revelation, the book of Daniel, Ezekiel, and all of the corresponding scriptures is an evil person. In the Islamic scriptures, the beast, the Mahdi, and the false Jesus, Isa, are good. What's good in the Bible is bad in Islam. What's bad in the Bible is good in Islam. What does that tell you? Now, in the end time, according to Islam, according to the book of Revelation and prophecies, they're going to build a temple in Jerusalem. Now, the Jews, you can go online and you can make donations to that temple right now. There's a lot of noise going over back there in that corner. And you can help build that temple. But if you do that, you're building the Antichrist temple. The Bible says that the Antichrist shall rise, and he shall make a covenant with the holy people, with Israel, for 7 years. But in the middle of that 7-year period, he's going to break his word. And he's going to turn on the Jews, and God says, when you see this happen, leave, run to the desert. Many people think that the desert place is Petra. Verse number 12. And the 10 horns which you saw, they're 10 kings, who a kingdom not yet they received, but authority as a king for 1 hour, for a short time, they received, with the swift-running beast. Now, if we interpret this according to Islam and Islamic writings, the beast is going to rise, and the beast is going to come out of Arabia. And the false Jesus is going to come out of Arabia, and we're going to have a Mahdi coming out of Syria, basically. And according to Islamic, he's going to rule for 7 years. Does this sound familiar? They're going to move the cobblestone into Jerusalem. They're going to build a temple there. And then in the middle of that 7-year contract, covenant, treaty, it's going to be broken. The Antichrist is going to stand up and absolutely declare and demand worship and say that he is God standing in the holy place. And the Jews are supposed to flee. And the Bible says that a great flood of the Antichrist armies will follow Israel down toward the desert, wherever they go, whether it's Petra or some other hiding place. And that Jesus shall sweep them away with a great flood, a natural earthquake or something, and swallow them up. And these all have one mind. They all have one mind. There's no room for private interpretation, it says. And the power and the authority given to them, to the beast, they give. The beast has all authority. Now, according to Islamic scriptures, that beast is a weird-looking thing, built like a camel, with long legs like a camel, the head of a bull, the eyes of a pig, the ears of an elephant, the neck of an ostrich, the front end like a lion, the tail like a ram, and 20 foot between his joints. The beast is going to be somebody or something, some powerful thing. And no one will buy or sell or do anything except they take the mark of the beast, and the mark of the beast is a surrender to authority. Now, all the jihadists have on their foreheads and on their arms, usually, hidden or in plain sight, either one, there is no God but Allah, and his messenger is Muhammad, and Muhammad is his messenger. If that is the mark of the beast, which Islam says it is, Islam says that every true believer of Islam, every true person that has surrendered to Islam will receive a mark. Branded. Branded with a symbol. They have one mind. And they have a power that's given unto them for a short time. And verse number 14 now, it says, these ones with the Lamb, they shall make war. These armies of the Antichrist shall make war with the Lamb. And the Lamb, he will conquer over them. Because Kyrios Kyrion Estin, Lord of Lords and King of Kings he is. Now this comes from the Greek idea, Adonai Ha'onaim. Beautiful, beautiful. Psalm 136 and Deuteronomy 10:17. This is a title of Jehovah. This is one of the titles that Jesus wears. And he will conquer them because he is Lord of Lords and he is King of Kings. Kyrios Kyrion Esti Kai Basilios bis Basilion Kai Hoi Meth Auto Kletoi Kai Eklektoi Kai Pistio. And with him the ones called chosen, the elect, and the faithful ones. The chosen and the elect ones and the faithful ones. Verse number 15, and he says to me, the waters which as you see, where the harlot sits. The waters here are talking about many people, like a great sea of people. There are peoples and crowds. The word crowds there is tens of thousands, tens of thousands. They are, and nations and languages. In other words, this empire shall conquer all nations and all languages. When Islam went down into Egypt, they killed millions of Egyptians and they forbid them to speak their language. They killed millions and they forbid them to speak their language. When you're a Muslim, you pray in one language, and that is Arabic, because that's all Allah hears. He only understands Arabic. That's the only prayers he will hear. And the prayers basically are quotations from the Quran. They just sit there and they repeat over and over again these things. Allah Akbar. Allah is greater, and what it means is Allah is greater than Jehovah. We know better than that, because this book tells us that. Harlots, religious harlots have burned many, many, many millions of God's people. Catholicism burned between 50 and 100 million, not burned, but murdered 50 to 100 million people. Islam has killed over 270 million people. True Christianity never killed anybody. And Catholicism was never true Christianity. Catholicism didn't begin until 325 AD. Verse number 16, and the 10 horns which you saw, and the swift-running beast, the Therion, these are the ones that they shall hate the harlot. And having been desolated, they shall make her naked. And the fleshes of her they shall eat, and they shall consume in fire. This is what's going to happen to Islam one of these days. This is what's going to happen to this great harlot. The 10 kings, the rulers, the 7 kings, the 8th one, all of this is going to come back upon them. God is going to turn his enemies against each other. And they will begin to kill each other. Well, that's not unusual for Islam anyway, is it? Islam is going through Islamic countries and killing each other daily. They have wars constantly over one denomination against the other. ISIS wanted to start the caliphate, rejuvenate the caliphate, and bring it back into existence again. For God he gave into the hearts of them to do the mind of him. He's going to turn people against people. They're going to begin to destroy each other. Islam is going to go right back into what Islam is doing today, killing each other. Why, Damascus, Syria is destroyed. Lebanon is destroyed. Because they're killing each other. To do the mind of him, and to make of one mind, and to give the kingdom of them to the beast, until they shall be brought down to a completion, the words of God. Until the words of God are completed. And the woman whom you saw, she is the city great, the one having a kingdom over the kings and over the earth. The great city. Remember, Catholicism only understood one thing: church-state religion. Islam only understands one thing: church-state religion. And the church is the state, and the whole corporation of all of this is the great city of the great harlot. Just like Constantinople was changed and taken over by the caliphate, Constantine moved to Rome, the head of the Roman Catholic Church, from Rome to Constantinople. Then Islam took over Constantinople. Babylon the Great is going to fall. The great confusion. The great adherence to this one world political system. The people are going to fall, and the government of that religion is going to fall. They'll think they've got it made. They'll think they're taking the whole world over. Satan, for a short time, he's going to think that he's got the world in his hands. He's destroying. He kills the 2 witnesses, but God raises them. He's trying to destroy Israel. He kills 2 out of every 3 Jews. He kills 5 out of every 6 Gentiles. And then God turns them on each other. It reminds me of a great president we had. President Franklin Roosevelt. He was a genius in politics. Now, a lot of you are going to disagree with me because you don't know what he did. I do. I've studied political science all my life. And Western civilization, I saw what he did. Russia was communist. Hitler had volunteers from every European nation in his armies, the SS Waffen, his Foreign Legion. Every nation was afraid of one thing, that if Russia come out alive in World War II, they were going to conquer the world with communism. One of our church members, Bob, was a member conscripted into Hitler's army. He was from European nations. He grew up. He was fighting in wars by the time he was 13 years old. He was put in that army. He saw what it was. He didn't like it. And then after the war, he saw what Russia and her fangs and teeth and claws did. And he moved to America, moved to Canada, and then into America. He was so happy until this last election. He said it reminded him of Czechoslovakia and Poland and Russia. He's very upset and unhappy today because he saw happening here what happened there so many years ago. He was forced to fight in Hitler's army. Marilyn's father and her uncles, some of them went, well, several of them went into World War I. And we had trouble with Germany in World War I. That's what the war was over. And they went over there, neighbors that lived across the street from each other. Some of the neighbors were German. They went to Germany to visit with their family, and they were conscripted into Hitler's army. Which one of your uncles was over there? Was it Felix?
Felix.
Felix. Felix went over there in the battlefield, and they were fighting in the trenches, and people were dying and bleeding out and moaning and groaning, and he walked by and he saw his neighbor in a German uniform. And he was so sad. And he comforted him and held him in his arms.
Mm-hmm.
And the neighbor gave his watch to him and told him to give it to his mother when he went back home.
Mm-hmm.
He never did. He took the watch, but he didn't give it to his mother because he was afraid, terrified that they'd think that he killed that boy. He was in enemy lines. And the other neighbors, they grew up together. Enemies. We live in a world that's changing quickly. Things are not going to get better, they're going to get worse. We always look for the bright side. And we should. It's depressing to read the book of Revelation, Daniel, Ezekiel, and realize that you're getting very close to that period of time. It's scary. Bob said, I don't want to go through this again. I'm 89 years old. I don't want to go through this again. I see it happening. I don't want to go through this again. Brethren, we have hard times ahead. I hope that this election is straightened out. I hope it is. But I don't know how much hope I have in this. Hitler had volunteers from all over the world in his army. And Franklin Roosevelt knew that we were going to have to fight Russia. I mean, he acted like he was Stalin's friend, but he knew what he was doing. He was backing the English But he had an Irish problem in America. The Irish would rebel if they declared war and went on the side of the England, because they hated England so much. They did that in the Civil War. They have done it in World War I, and they were doing it in World War II. They did not want to go defend England. They hated English, especially the Irish Catholics. He allowed Germany to go, and they thought that Hitler would go into Russia and wipe it out within 6 weeks, maximum 6 months. But the Russian winters got them, and they ran out of fuel. They ran out of fuel. America was backing and selling fuel to Germany. Specifically, you may not believe this, but this is history. The Bush family, Preston Bush and George Sr. They even helped to relocate the factories at the end when the war was ending. There's some weird things happen here. We know that they brought some German scientists to America by droves, trying to capture the secrets that Hitler had. Franklin Roosevelt put an embargo against Japan. Many people told him, Churchill told him, leave them alone. We got a big enough war already. Let's concentrate on Germany. But Franklin Roosevelt had to have a reason to get into war, because he said, we don't want war. And he allowed Germany to go in there and conquer a whole lot of Russia. Because we knew we were going to have to fight them, so why not get some of them killed off? So you won't have such a big enemy to fight. And he did that. He waited until Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, and then he declared war. December the 7th. A day in infamy. And everybody agreed on that. No more Irish problem. Everybody agreed we had to fight Japan. But when we declared war on Japan, guess what? Hitler declared war on America. So now we're in the war without any squabbling and without any homeland politics. Brilliance. And of course, Russia fought and lost millions of people. But Stalin had killed millions before that anyway. He killed off his whole army, all the leaders, and he had to start all over again. Women were his army. Children were fighting, women were fighting. They were fighting all over the place. But the winters in Russia stopped Napoleon. Winters in Russia stopped Hitler. But a lot of it was because he ran out of fuel. Out of fuel. Strategies are all over. But the greatest strategist in all of history is God. And this is God's strategy that we see right here. We all come down to this one thing. This is the strategy of the omnipresent, all-knowing, omniscient God. And there is nothing is going to beat him, even though the devil thinks he's got it for a while. The whole world thought Hitler could go through Russia in overnight, almost, in 6 weeks and wipe it out. Take it over, but it didn't happen. Those people are tough. Satan thinks that he's got it made. But he's going to run out of fuel, just like Germany did. He's going to run out of gas. And God's going to turn them against each other. And God's going to win. There was an old black man that was a janitor at a high school. And across the street from the high school was a seminary. And the students would come over there, and the old man would sit there reading his Bible as the students played basketball. These are all, seminary students, brilliant. They thought they knew everything. In the first and second year and the third year, seminary students are the greatest theologians in the world until they get 4, 5, 6, and 7 years, and they realize they don't know anything. When you get dumb, then you begin to learn. I remember that. You couldn't shut the students up in the first and second year classes. You almost had to strangle them. When they got up in fifth and sixth year, they would never open their mouths. The old man sat there reading the book of Revelation. And one of the real brilliant students came over there to him and said, "What are you doing?" "I'm reading the Bible." "What are you reading, the book of Revelation?" He looked at him and he smiled. He said, "You understand that book? You understand? You think you understand the book of Revelation?" He said, "Yeah, I understand it." "Well, what does it say, if you understand it?" "Jesus wins." That's what it says. Jesus wins. Jesus is the greatest strategist in the history of all mankind. We had Alexander the Great. We have Nebuchadnezzar. We have Cyrus the Great. We have all of these wonderful strategists. And we have God. Jesus wins. Our Father, we send this message out to your people and give us hope in that we know that you win in the end. Father, thank you for your word. Thank you for the comfort in it. Touch people's lives. I pray that if there's one lost out there, that they will call upon you begging for mercy and that you save their souls. Father, please forgive me where I failed you. In Jesus' name.